Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Hi. This is awesome. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you to Black Hills and all of the organizers and volunteers for putting all the work in to put this thing on so that we can be here at this amazing con. And thank you to all of you for taking the time and making the effort to be here. I know it's not the easiest place to get to, and I really appreciate all of you coming out. It's totally worth it. If it's your first Wild West Hackin Fest, welcome. It's pretty sweet. Wild West Hackin Fest is one of my favorite cons because of its emphasis on skill building and hands-on experimentation, and its attempt to create an atmosphere where everybody, no matter who they are, whether you are the newbiest noob or the person who invented all the things, can come together in an atmosphere where you can learn by getting your hands dirty and experimenting with your peers. Because it's okay to learn, and it's really fun to experiment. So in that spirit, this is a talk about skill building and experimentation and how we can get better at what we do as individuals and as an industry. And about how we can build an industry that allows others to do so that we can become better together. Because, spoiler alert, we haven't solved security yet. This may come as a surprise to some of you, perhaps. Things are really insecure still. The things that we've tried so far have not necessarily worked. And we need to do better. We need more innovation. We need to come up with ideas that people haven't come up with yet. And one of the ways to do that is by experimenting. And one of the ways to do that is by getting more diverse voices and more diverse perspectives, and creating an industry that encourages that encourages everybody to come in, be who they are, and be able to create or break the amazing stuff that they're going to be able to do. So how do we do that? Here's some ideas, because we need all the help we can get. What? So, okay, spoiler alert. I'm taking a cue from Kelsey Hightower, who is a person in the container world who is amazing, who did a keynote at DevOps Days Austin in which he had no slides at all. And he just sat there and told stories about himself, his path through tech, and how tech can be an avenue for marginalized people to be able to move up in life. It was an amazing keynote. There was not a dry eye in the house, and I was really inspired by it. So I figured I would be slideless for this one. John told me, though, that I should put a picture up, so there is a picture of a flower. The picture of a flower in the desert, which I'm fairly sure somebody actually just stuck a flower into that wall. But the idea is that in places like, for example, South Dakota, that are perhaps, difficult to flower in, that are maybe not necessarily a super friendly environment, you can still thrive, you can still grow, and you can still create something beautiful. And I think some folks need to hear that, and I think we need to cultivate that. So that's why that's up there. So you don't have to raise your hand. I'm not putting you on the spot. But if there's anyone in this room who doesn't feel like they belong here for any reason at all, if you don't feel like you belong here because you think you're too old or too young, if you don't feel like you belong here because you're underrepresented in some way or another, if you don't feel like you belong here because maybe you don't work in security yet, maybe you don't feel like you're elite enough to be here, if you don't feel like you belong here because you work in some other form of IT, or maybe you don't work in IT at all and you're interested in it, for any reason whatsoever, I want to tell you specifically, person in the audience who isn't raising their hand, that you do belong here. You belong. And we need you here. We need your voice. We need your perspective. Because we need all the voices and all the perspectives that we can get. There are people out there who have come up with ideas that we have not even begun to think about yet. And not all of those people are voices that we hear from. That's a shame. We need to hear from those people because we need to know what those ideas are so that we can take them and run with them. Because as I said, the things that we're doing aren't necessarily working super well yet. So you belong here. Whether or not somebody has told you that you don't, and whether or not you have told yourself that you don't. Because that voice in your head isn't telling you the truth. And that person or those people who told you that you don't belong in a place like this, they're not telling the truth either. Those people are speaking from a place of fear. And that is not where we need to be coming from as an industry. We need to be coming from a place of growth. We need to be growing relationships, growing ideas, and helping each other grow. So you, person who doesn't feel like they belong here, maybe you feel like you have to be someone else to be in a security space or to be in the security industry. Maybe you feel like you have to have a whole different skill set or be a whole different person, but you don't, because the skills and experience that you bring to this room, to this space, to this industry, those have value and they have relevance. And you don't come with nothing. You come with the sum of all your skills and experience and everything that you're bringing to this room, which really means a lot, because if we only hear from the same cookie-cutter group of people over and over, we tend to hear the same ideas over and over. So if you've come from a background of like being an EMT, you may be very well suited to incident response, even if you don't currently work in IT or security. If you come from a background of like being the like cocktail waitress who made all the tips because you could smile and get somebody to tell your life story in like not very long, you're gonna be an amazing social engineer. Like, you have skills that you can bring here and that you can rock and that we need. You don't have to start from scratch. You're not coming here from scratch. You get to bring who you are and what you know, and you get to be who you are and use what you know and be able to help us all grow that way. Who you are is important. Your voice matters. And your experience and perspective, which nobody has but you, bring things to the table that we don't already have. No one can tell your story like you can. No one else can tell your story at all. And if you are, learning the basics, if you are learning things or speaking to things that other people have spoken about before, nobody else can tell that story like you can. Nobody else can explain it like you. And so, know that your voice has value and that your skills matter. You know more than you think, about more than you think. And you should know that you can make it, because you can. You have to get out of your own way, and we have to get out of yours. So, I realized I hadn't actually introduced myself. So, hi, my name is Ian, and I'm a lead platform security engineer at a platform as a service cloud company called Heroku. Before that, I was an independent penetration tester specializing in containers, Kubernetes, and cloud security. I like emerging tech. It's really fun for me to be able to trace the new things and be able to break things that people really haven't broken yet. It's fun for me. And that's been my path. I came through DevOps. I was a DevOps engineer before I made the jump. And at first, I didn't think I belonged here at all. I was like, I don't have anything to contribute here. These are full of elite security people. I'm just some DevOps. What do I have to say about anything? And as it turned out, the knowledge that I had from doing the cloud and container work that I was doing was work that hadn't really mostly been done yet in the security industry. And so that knowledge that I thought that was useless, didn't have value, I was able to take that and bring it and create, be able to speak to ideas that other folks hadn't really begun to get to yet, because security and DevOps often move at different speeds. And that's part of my story. And it doesn't have to be yours. Not everybody has to play the emerging tech game. Not everybody has to be a specialist. I've done basically everything in my life wrong, and you don't have to do it wrong too. Not everybody has to play on hard mode. If you do, respect, it's hard. But you should know that whatever path you choose, however you get there, that's valid, and it's yours, and you can do that. You have the power to do that. So how do you forge that path? How do you even find the path you want to go on? If you haven't gotten started yet, InfoSec can be really overwhelming. There's so much. It's such a wide discipline. There's there's threat hunting and incident response and cloud stuff and PCI and compliance and governance and policy and reverse engineering and exploit development and blah, blah, blah. I could go all day. There are so many different paths, and I think for people who are generally interested in security and aren't sure where to start, that can be a hard thing to figure out, where they want to go with that. So one way that you can figure that out, if you're trying to figure that out, is getting your hands dirty, going in and playing, taking a cue from yourself as a child or the children in your life and just being like, nah, I'm just going to go and do it. And Wild West Hackin' Fest has a lot of good things to do that with. One thing I recommend is capture the flag games. If you've never played those before, those can be really fun, especially ones that have a lot of different categories that you can play in, so you can kind of put your fingers in all the pies a little bit, figure out which ones you want. And once you figure out kind of what does it for you and what doesn't, which I think in my experience you can figure out pretty quickly if you're just like, no, I hate this, or actually I'm really into this and I want to do more of it, then run with it. Go deep with it. And I'm not saying this to say that everybody needs to specialize in something, because generalists are all over the place and they're really important. But as a generalist, you have a specialty too, which is understanding how the connections between things, the patterns that you see, and how those things can work together. As a specialist, maybe you don't know all the things. I think it's easy for people to see the people out there in the world on social media or in books or whatever and just be like, oh, that person knows all the things. That person is way smarter than I will ever be. And it's easy to see that, partly because we put images of ourselves out on social media that maybe are, showing our good sides a lot of the time. But partly because I think the folks that somebody like Casey Smith, who's incredible with Windows stuff, it's easy to look, or someone I guess me, who's good at container stuff, I am utterly Windows ignorant. I'm really bad at it. And I know enough about Windows to pass the OSCP, and that is about it. And so, you can see people and be like, oh, that person's way above me. But really, if you specialize narrowly, it's easy to, you might not actually know all the things. And maybe Casey does, I don't know, but I don't. And so it's important to keep in mind that the people that you're looking at are human. They don't know everything. And the fact that they're able to accomplish what they are is indicative of the fact that actually you are also human, and you don't have to know everything, and you can accomplish a lot yourself. So take the thing that you have discovered that you love and run with it. Go deep with it. And really understand what it is and how it works. And by that, I mean not just the high-level stuff, although that's really important. Really understand what's happening under the hood. I think that a lot of advice that gets given to new pen testers is, here's a list of tools. What can you do as a pen tester? Tool. And maybe those tools will actually have nothing to do with each other. It'll be you as a pen tester could use Maltego and Binary Ninja and Kali in general, and WFuzz and something else. And those things don't actually really resemble each other or have anything to do with each other, and there are reasons why you might want to use them or not that depend on use case and the problem you're trying to solve. But a lot of the time, that context isn't provided when people are like, here's how you hack. DevOps has this problem too. Here's how you DevOps. You can use these automation tools, and then you're good, you have DevOps. And that's not what DevOps means. DevOps is a culture. And it's the idea of development and operations working together and changing the culture and the process so that people are working toward the same goals. I would argue that hacking isn't actually the use of tools either. Hacking is experimenting, trying to figure out how to use something in the way that maybe it wasn't intended to try to get it to do something that maybe its makers didn't intend it to do. And that can look any number of ways. But I think reducing it to tools does it a disservice. And I think if we do what we do, only understanding how to use the tools and what commands to hit the button and then enter it, I think we do ourselves a disservice in understanding what it is that's going on in there, how it works. So go in and learn the internals. Learn how tools are fine. They're useful a lot of the time. I'm not smack talking. Use the tools if you want to, but understand what that tool does, how that tool works, and what actually that tool is doing in order to make it do the thing that it does. You can choose your own adventure. Learning that, whatever it is that you learn, doesn't have to look like anybody else's. And once you find that path, once you forge it, if you're forging it on your own, don't keep it to yourself. Share that knowledge with everybody. Because as I said, InfoSec is a wide field. There is too much happening for everybody to know all the things. It is literally impossible. There is too much to know, and there is too much to do. There's so much work to be done, we don't have enough people to do it. InfoSec has a negative unemployment rate. There's a reason for that. There's relatively few people with the skills that are needed. And so staying small, keeping that knowledge to yourself, doesn't actually help. It doesn't help security, and it doesn't help you. Because if you're an island, and you are trying to just try to learn all the things and hoard all the knowledge yourself, for one thing, you just can't. And for another thing, you can get a lot farther if you don't feel like you have to know or do everything. If you have people with you who can also teach you what they know, learn with you, and go with you. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think that's really important. I think we can go together more. I think we can share knowledge with each other within the community more, and I think we can share knowledge more with folks outside of security, which we really don't do a lot of the time. A lot of the time, security teams and engineering teams don't really communicate well. And a lot of the time, security folks and other folks who are working in other areas of tech maybe don't talk at all, don't share the knowledge that they have. And that means that, for one thing, there is a basic lack of understanding on some levels about the things that people are doing over in Cloudland, for example, and the things that people are doing on the security end. A lot of the time, people are just really unaware of each other in a way that can be surprising. A couple of years ago, I spoke at a DevOps conference and then spoke at DerbyCon, just in a row, literally flew from one to the other. And at the DevOps conference, I had dinner with fancy, famous DevOps engineers, really smart people, And I was talking about something, and I was like, oh, Kali Linux, and they were like, what? They had never heard of it. They had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fairly common knowledge some places, but I guess not here, And I, armed with that knowledge, went to DerbyCon, went to dinner at DerbyCon, and was talking about Kubernetes and was in a group of luminously talented security engineers who had no idea what I was talking about. And that isn't because any of those people are stupid. Kubernetes at the DevOps table was common knowledge, but it's because common knowledge isn't actually often that common. We don't actually, I think every one of us, especially when we're more senior, feels like the knowledge that we have is kind of basic and boring, but it isn't shared universally. And if we share that knowledge that we have, even if it sort of seems commonplace, to somebody that's going to be absolutely revelatory, just mind-blowing. And if we talk more to developers, if we talk more to people who are in infrastructure, if we talk more to those folks about our security knowledge in a way that isn't condescending or mean, because unfortunately, occasionally, I think we do have a reputation for being condescending and mean, then I think they can learn from us, and frankly, we can learn from them, because they're doing a lot of work that we're behind, that we can learn from, that we can learn how to secure without being a couple of years behind all the time and having to play scramble to catch up. And on teams, in orgs, If an engineer who's probably closer to the code base than you as a security engineer sees a security issue and feels safe talking to you, maybe they'll tell you about it. Maybe you can actually learn about a hole in your code base before it gets breached and you learn about it that way. But we have to cultivate those relationships first. We have to be able to talk to one another and listen to one another in order to be able to make that happen. And we have to learn continuously. All of us do. Developers, operators, security folks. If you don't want to keep learning, you're in the wrong line of work here. And so we can't coast. It's a terrible idea to do so, and we shouldn't try. And one way that we can continue to learn is by communicating and sharing knowledge. And one way that we can continue to learn, frankly, is not being afraid to suck at things, right? Because not everybody is born knowing stuff, and if you can start out knowing that you're going to be a beginner and iterate on it and experiment with it, and if we can create atmospheres where it's okay for people to do that, and where people aren't going to shit on each other for being new, if you'll excuse my language, then people can feel more free to do that, and that's going to be really important. We all have to start somewhere. All of us do. Let's help other people get where they want to go, and they can help us get where we want to go too. Because every single one of us has something to teach and something to learn. There's an old graffiti that got put out there in the world that said, "Be realistic, demand the impossible," which on its face is absurd, maybe. But if we think about it that way, if we have the audacity to dream up ideas that somebody says are impossible, if we have the audacity to be in a space where somebody might not think we belong, if we have the audacity to speak our voices, speak to our perspectives, speak our truths, share our ideas and our knowledge, we can get really far that way, together. What would it look like if we demanded the impossible? What would our communities look like? What would our industry look like? What would we look like? It's worth considering, because that's how people innovate. That's how people move forward, is by having the audacity to do things that people haven't done, or to do things that people have done and do them really, really well, by understanding how it works well and by executing it well. All of us are capable of this. This isn't some super elite thing that none of us mere mortals are capable of doing. All of us every day can work to learn and to build relationships and to share with each other. For people in the room, because I've already talked about the people who are wanting to get started and trying to figure out where, who are here already, who are perhaps more senior, maybe in positions of leadership of one sort or another, either leadership in an org, leadership in your community, or perhaps both. I'm talking to you for a minute. How do we lead? What does leadership mean? How do we do this well? Because we can do it better. Let's lead by example. Let's show people how it can be done and empower them to be able to do things how they want them to be done. And there's an expression, I think, that comes from somewhere that's, in relation to working with engineers, it's build guardrails, not gates. And I'm going to say we can build guardrails when we need to, when we're creating relationships with engineers or with other folks across the aisle. But also, I think that we can also put the ladder down, right? Or build bridges, not gates. Because we need to be able to create spaces where people feel, as I said, safe to be able to speak to the things that they see and free to be able to learn and grow and share. This is not only important for them, it's important for you as a person who's senior, as a person in a position of leadership, Because here's the thing. Individuals scale very badly. There is no Kubernetes for people. We don't auto-scale, we don't have failover. As I said, you can't do everything. You just can't. And one way that we can continue to grow past our own individual capacities is by giving other people the tools and the power to be able to grow too, so that we can all grow together as a community and as an industry. And power can be hard. I'm not gonna lie. They say power corrupts, and often that's true, but it doesn't have to. If you treat it with care, and if you use it as an avenue to be able to lift others up instead of pushing them down, you can use the power that is given to you in a position of leadership or in a position of seniority to be able to help everybody grow. A rising tide lifts all boats. You don't have to keep flooding everything. You don't have to do it all yourself. If we rise that tide for everybody, we can all paddle together. Be thoughtful with the responsibilities that you're given. Treat the people who are listening to you well. Treat your platform with care, if you have one. And you can do a lot with that. And there are things that we really just need to stop doing as an industry in order to be able to make it possible for folks who are coming up to grow and folks who are in leadership positions to do this well. We need to stop gatekeeping. We just do. It isn't helpful for us. It isn't helpful for security. It isn't helping anybody grow. I think that some folks who gatekeep mean well, and they really want people to be focused on learning, people to be focused on knowledge, people to be hacking all the things. And fair enough, we should be hacking all the things, that's great. But actually, telling people that they can't do that doesn't help achieve that goal. The way that we can create a space where more people are able to do more interesting stuff is not by telling them to get out. It's by letting them in, and by letting them use their voices and do the things that have occurred to them that haven't occurred to you. So, as I said, build bridges, not gates. And if you, person in position of leadership, person in position of authority, had a hard time getting to where you are now, I think some folks are like, I went through it. And therefore that means that other people have to go through it too. That sucks. That's no good for anybody. Because it was hard for you. You probably weren't very happy going through that. Other folks, if they don't have to go through that, don't have to share the scars that you have. Other folks, if they don't have to go through that, can be able to move forward without having to overcome the barriers that you have. And that can mean that they can grow in ways that perhaps you haven't been able to or haven't imagined yet. Because we are all capable of growth. We are all capable of amazing things. Every one of us has so much power by ourselves and together. If we use that power to be able to lift each other up, to help each other grow, we can do so much with that isn't currently being done, and we can do that. So as you learn, as you come up, share your knowledge. Share the gifts that you've been given and the things that you've come up with. And lift as you climb. As you move up in the world, other folks are trying to come up too. Instead of pushing them down, help them up with you. Come up together. This is useful both for you in a sort of mercenary sense, because those people are going to hire you in a few years, and it's useful for everybody because it means that we can help lift the industry and the folks in it up and help make security better. And keep your eyes on the prize. Like, a lot of the time, I think it's easy, InfoSec being a relatively small town, and I mean this in like the Sinclair Lewis Main Street sense, everybody's talking about each other, everybody's gossiping, people spend a lot of time thinking about sort of human factors, but not that human factor. And that's a waste of time. It isn't really good for us as a community. It isn't really good for us as an industry, and it just isn't really good for us as people, I think. I think if we spend our time trying to posture, thinking about drama, being caught up in nonsense, like all of those things, I think it doesn't actually help us learn, and it doesn't actually help us grow. And by drama, I don't mean somebody saying like, hey, that guy's an asshole. That guy touched me in an inappropriate way. That's not cool. That's not drama. Drama is just like, Shakespeare had a thing about a tempest in a teapot. It's just like manufactured stuff that we all need to get mad at for an hour, and then an hour from now we're going to be mad at something else. Like, we don't actually have to live that way. And being caught up in that is not what makes a hacker or somebody in the InfoSec industry. Being caught up in that means that you're spending a lot of time on stuff that isn't really helping you grow. So if we keep our eyes on the prize, if we think about learning, about sharing, about growing with each other, and if we're able to do that in positive ways, that can, yeah, it's better for all of us. So, moving the industry forward, how can we do that? It's been said that more diverse teams make stronger products. There's science behind this, because more diverse teams have fewer blind spots and better ideas about like what can be done that maybe a less diverse team might not have access to. And security is done better with stronger relationships. So, to move this industry forward, what we need to do, we need more diversity, and we need to build better relationships across teams and with each other. And we can help each other grow in really concrete ways. If you have an underrepresented coworker and you are not an underrepresented person, really brag on that person's accomplishments a lot. You know, be like, this person's great, they do great work, you know, like help them come up. If you have access to things like speaking gigs and things like that, you can hand them to folks who need them. If you have knowledge that can be helpful to other people, you can share that knowledge so that people can take it and run with it. If you run a workplace that has a budget and you have any control over that budget, I would really like to encourage all the workplaces to like invest in your people. Because if your people are happier, they're going to do better work. And if your people are able to access things like conferences and things like trainings and workshops and things like that, they're able to grow their knowledge, and they're able to take that knowledge back to your org and run with it and be able to do better work with that. So if you have access to that or control over that, invest in your folks, invest in the people who work with you, because those investments will come back. And whether or not you have access to the budget, or whether or not you're in a leadership position, all of us can do our part by ourselves and with each other to create an industry where everyone is free to do their thing and learn. Where everyone is free to like play, experiment, figure out amazing things that nobody's figured out yet, share that knowledge, and where they're able to do that and concentrate on that without having to deal with gatekeeping, harassment, having their belonging questioned, other kinds of nonsense, or being made fun of for being new and learning. We're all new sometime. If we're able to encourage each other and help bring each other up, that it means that folks are able to concentrate on getting better and making things better without having that additional overhead of just having to deal with nonsense. That's better for everybody, because nobody needs any kind of nonsense. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. Everybody has to start somewhere. Let's all help get each other, get ourselves where we want to go. As the great philosopher Cardi B once said, whatever you do, be the best at it that you can be. If you're gonna be a hoe, be the best hoe you can be. And that's kind of funny, but I also think that we can learn a lot from it. If you're gonna be a house cleaner, be the best house cleaner that you can be. If you are going to be an internet janitor, like many of us, be the best internet janitor you can be. Take the things that you are doing and get good at them. Be good at them. Work to become better, and work to help other folks become better. That's better for everybody. So whatever you do, whatever it is that you're into, learn how it works. Really, learn how it works. Get into the internals, figure it out, share the knowledge that you gain. Learn how to do the thing that you're doing well. Get good at it, and share that knowledge so that others can get good too. We all move forward together that way. No individual is able to know or do it all. It's impossible. Individuals scale badly. But if we network with one another, build relationships within the community, within the industry, and outside of it, share our knowledge, and listen to others, work together, we can teach and learn from each other. We can make the industry better. Every one of us is able to rise this tide. We can do it. We can do it ourselves. We can do it together. We can lift each other, one boat at a time. So, person who doesn't think they belong, know that you belong. Know that we need you. We need your voice, your perspective, and the knowledge that you bring, because you do have knowledge that you are bringing. You, person in a position of leadership, treat your folks well. Treat the people around you who are coming up in ways that you would have wanted to be treated. Be the person that you needed when you were coming up, so that those people can pay it forward and do the same for others coming up as well. You, person in this room, you have the power to make things better. You have the power to be a positive presence in the lives of the people that you love, in the lives of the people that you work with, in the community that you're surrounded by, and in the industry that we share. You, the person wanting to get into this industry, you can do it. All of us can do it. Let's do it. Let's rise the tide. Thank you very much.